United States Congressman Riley Moore has stated that the U.S. airstrikes in Sokoto State thwarted potential Christmas attacks by the radical Islamic terrorists in Nigeria, as witnessed in the past years when the terrorists carried out deadly strikes on Christians. However, in the aftermath of the airstrike last Thursday, a section in the north has opposed the intervention, questioning the invasion of sovereignty. Joining us on this show to discuss issues that have arisen in the aftermath of the U.S. strike on terrorist locations in Sokoto is Dr. Kunle Fagbemi, a political scientist and national security scholar. He will also review the work of the U.S.-Nigeria Binational Commission, address the issue of sovereignty and specific objectives of the current ongoing U.S. operations in Nigeria. Good morning, Dr. Fagbemi, and thank you very much for joining us on The Morning Show. Hello, Doctor.
Good morning, Dr. Abati, and thank you very much for having me. Compliments of the season.
Same to you. Thank you. Well, very quickly, you already had the introduction. Your take on the issues of the U.S.-Nigeria bilateral cooperation in the recent intervention against terrorists, with particular attention to the issues of sovereignty, location of the intervention, and also the fallouts that we have had from people saying, oh, it's because Nigerian government is bypassing, is abdicating responsibility, and that there are more fundamental issues, because one strike from the U.S. cannot solve our problems.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abasi and the team. I think we need to enlighten ourselves clearly. The clause of sovereignty that people are using to make a reference and are using to confuse Nigerians and the issues on the subject matter revolve around a 1945 document, which is the United Nations Charter, that talks about the issue of sovereignty, and particularly in the Article 2 and other references going to Article 51 and others. But mind you, that is an 80-year-old instrument. And in those 80 years, we have moved away from the principle of non-intervention, non-interference, into the era of non-indifference, which now permits states to intervene, as it were, when you have dynamics that will warrant the need for such interventions. And a number of protocols, treaties, and agreements and principles have come into force in the last 80 years. In those 80 years, a particular principle and of note is a responsibility to protect, which now provides us an opportunity that there can be some level of concerted efforts by actors, can be an attempt for international community to resolve, to intervene. It therefore means that we must be mindful of our dynamics as it relates to our global responsibilities and the international instruments that the Nigerian state is a state party onto. When you take a look at what we are dealing with, we are now dealing with the bilateral relationships that exist between the Nigerian state and the United States of America. Nigeria and US have close to 65 years of diplomatic relationships and ties, and we've had a number of instruments that tend to govern our relationships, and in this regard we have eventually gotten to the level by 2010 that we now have the US-Nigeria Binational Commission. And interestingly, last year, 2024, the US-Nigeria Binational Commission met, and part of the decisions and the principles and the number one cardinal issue that the Binational Commission has been addressing is that of security. So this intervention is not something coming from the blues, and we must be mindful that over the years we've had a situation where the Nigerian state is a state party to the African Center for Strategic Studies. We are state party to the African Crisis Initiative, that is now ACOTA, that is the Africa Contingency Operations Training Assistance, and then the African Partnership Station 2007, the African Crisis Initiative, that is ACOTA, is 2004. And Nigeria is a member of the Global Coalition to Defeat ISIS, which is the D-ISIS. And then we are party, let me finish please. We are party to Trans-Sahara Counterterrorism Partnership since 2005, which actually started in 2002 as Pan-Sahel Initiative, meaning therefore that there are a number of issues and instruments that have been ongoing that have culminated into a strategic partnership that will lead to an intervention under the responsibility to protect and under the purview of a number of these instruments. And this is why we're always pleading with the occupants of public offices to always understand that they need to define and explain their roles correctly to Nigerians.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Fagbemi. So, how do we measure success when it comes to airstrikes like this, precision airstrikes like this? I say this because some groups in the north have come out to say, oh, this wasn't successful. What is the impact of it? It didn't have as much impact. Some have opined, and which we have discussed on this table, the location of where the first or the initial airstrikes ought to have happened. What's your take on this, and how do we measure impact when it comes to responses like this or reactions like this?
Interestingly, we are dealing with a situation where, unfortunately, a number of issues are not properly and clearly understood. Defense information management system is completely different from the normal bits. And this is where you operate under the principles of the right to disclose, right to know, and not to disclose. Painfully, what we are dealing with is very interesting. Interesting in the sense that we are dealing with multiple messaging from different platforms and actors. The Nigerian state did not put any information out there early, and this is understood, and primarily because under some of those principles, and you remember under the Binational Commission of U.S.-Nigeria Relations, the co-chair and co-convening authority is the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Nigeria and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio in the United States. Those are the two major actors. Unfortunately, there is a sub-working group that is supposed to manage the dynamics pertaining to security dynamics and intelligence management that is headed by the Malam Nuhu Ribadu, who is the incumbent National Security Advisor of the Nigerian state. Over the years, and you know that I was on this set earlier on, and I was pleading that the National Security Advisor needed to be mindful of the way he plays his role in such a way and manner. 2024, a binational commission meeting held, and some of the issues raised, and this is where we are going to plead with those who understand that they need to ensure that all of them in the presidency that are involved in information management will need to go back and read the reports of that particular conference that held in between the Nigerian state and the United States. When they read it, you will understand that what we are now making reference to, and the question you want me to answer directly, is that precision strikes. When you're talking about precision strikes, there are many layers involved. Number one, you want to make sure that the projectiles, munitions that you are using will attack the correct coordinates that has been determined. And two, that if the projectile has to be powered by some materials, and those ones will fall down at some locations as they are going because they expend some of those fuel materials along the line, they will have had to calculate that those ones that are going to drop as debris will not cause harm. And that is part of why they are saying precision. And this is where ideally what ought to have been done under the arrangement when you are going in, and this is where I really pity my brother, Major General Eneche, the Foundation Director for Defense Information Management System, who comes on air, and each time you see him coming on air, he comes with his medals, even on his civilian uniform after being retired. When you understand that you are dealing with a number of issues that you must compartmentalize, and you need to bring the editors of the media houses to speed. You need to have called them to understand that these are the things that we are dealing with, and this question that you've asked me particularly will have been addressed, and you will not be asking me the way you have been asking me, and a number of other media platforms and outlets are asking the wrong questions because it is not yet time to disclose if and when you have the assessment done is when we can begin to answer these questions in terms of the impact and success story. But mind you, we've gotten here because a certain President Donald Trump has put some information in public domain, which is part of his own stewardship accountability to the United States of America system, which is part of his own communication with his troops. His troops must be assured that the command and control information that is going out is clearly understood, that he is absolving them of every liabilities, and that he is taking full responsibility.
Doctor, I don't even get the answer you just gave, because common sense, I'm saying common sense, base level, by now, a recce should have been done. Impact assessments, debris, you're talking about debris. till date, we don't even know, is it the debris that affected Kwara? That affected the hotel in Offa? Was that the debris? By today, a recce, an impact assessment, a press briefing as regards what transpired and what happened. I mean, this is not far-fetched. I remember General Irabo. When General Irabo was in charge of Lafia Dule, I think about 2015 thereabout, for every airstrike, an attack, he gives an update live on television. He talks about the recce and he talks about the information, and that's why everybody's at sea today. How long will it take to do a recce? By our own authorities in the first place? Or are we waiting for the Americans to come and do a recce for us on our own soil? Because we saw officers there cordon off areas. So what was the report? I mean, these are the things we need to know for transparency basis. That's what I'm confused.
My brother Rufai, there's no need to be confused. We are dealing with an ugly situation where the Nigerian state and system is not being run based on principles, rules of procedure and protocols. You will realize that when you're talking of when General Irabo and co were in office, that was under a different dispensation. And one of the managers of the information system of the Nigerian system and state is seated on the table there with you. They attempted and tried to follow the books. When you are following the books, you will operate with a high level of transparency. By now, ideally, when it was clear that we were going to get to this level, all the members of the morning show on Arise would have received detailed briefing by the Defense Information System. Unfortunately, the people that are in office, like I had to use the phrase the last time I appeared on this show, are operating with journalistic arrogance. And that is why we are not having the kind of stewardship accountability that you're talking about. If you want to have the kind of stewardship accountability that you're talking about, we will require everybody playing by the books. For example, you need to ask them, when last did the Joint Intelligence Board meet?
Okay,
you need to ask them, when last did the Information Management System meet? You will realize that these are the issues that we are dealing with. If you want an assessment done, by doctor, now, what you are saying to me is that you...
Dr. Fagbemi, we seem to have run out of time. But I get what you are saying. Your point about steward accountability and the right to know. But I leave you with one message from, one point from information theory. There's a difference between the right to know and the need to know. So when we talk about transparency, we should also recognize, that gap between the right to know and the need to know. And that's what states rely on when they say certain information is classified. But we'd like to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. Thank you very much indeed.